Well, hello, Tennyson. How are you doing today?
Hi, Kim. I am awesome. How are you?
I'm doing great. I wanted to thank you for coming on the show today to share your shocking story. And first of all, is it okay to talk about this and share it with everybody? Is it okay with you?
Oh, of course. It
You're
is
feeling
out
okay?
there.
Okay, I just
Yeah.
wanted to make sure you felt okay about
Oh,
doing.
oh yes, I am good.
Okay, and I know a little bit of your story, but why don't you share what happened
Yeah.
and give us a little background too first?
Yeah. So my name is Tennyson and I grew up in the Snoqualmie Valley. I've lived here all my life. I met my husband my senior year of high school, and he's the only guy I've ever dated. And we have two kids now, Lila and Skylar. Lila's 10 and Skylar's 7. And we still live in the valley, which is amazing. And I run an insurance agency, which is how we connected, and I'm so grateful. And then my husband is a firefighter for Kirkland Fire Department. So, yeah, but the story that I know is pretty shocking. If it's it's always so random to just go into it because it's just
Yeah.
so different. But yeah, it was about 10 years ago. We were living with my mom in North Bend. This is the home I grew up in. And it was my first Mother's Day. Our daughter was 8 months old. And we lived on the outskirts of town in North Bend. So we weren't right downtown, but we were living with my mom while building our house. And we had just got home from being gone for the weekend. And at the time, we owned a CrossFit gym. So my husband left to go to the CrossFit gym, and I'm just kind of cleaning up from getting home. It was about maybe 1 o'clock in the afternoon on Mother's Day. And my mom is in her bedroom, and I noticed this guy walking up to our front door. We had these big glass front doors. And I was like, your first instinct is to go greet somebody at the door. And as I start walking there, it's crazy how fast your head processes everything. But I was like, well, this is kind of odd. Like nobody ever came to our house because again, we were kind of far out of town. And I was like, and it's Sunday and it's Mother's Day. And so that all went through in a millisecond. And I realized, I was like, oh, this guy is not stopping at the front door. And so he was just this big guy who was walking with massive intent. And he walked right in the door and he came right after me. And so my instinct was to run towards my daughter, who was sitting on the floor playing. And before I could get to her, he grabbed me. I had a ponytail, and grabbed me. He bends me over the couch. He covers my mouth. And this guy was well, he was a big guy. He was over 6 feet tall. He was, over 200 pounds. He was just big. And uh, he bends over the couch and he says, I won't hurt you. I just want your money. And he smelled so bad. I can't even begin to describe the smell. And so what's going through my head is, oh my gosh, this guy's going to take me. What is he going to do with me? I actually had $41, which I never have cash ever. So I said, okay, I'm trying to scream and I'm moving my body. And I said, okay, I have $41, and it was in my diaper bag by the front door. So he's holding me by the ponytail, walks me to the front door. I get out my wallet, and it's one of those zip wallets. So I was unzipping it, just fully anticipating for him to take it out of my hands. Like, if you want my money, why don't you take the whole wallet? But he waits for me to take out the money. And I was just like, well, that's really odd. And I hand him the money, and he looks at me, he lets go of me, and he looks at me with this look that was pure evil. It's basically what you'd see in the movies. It was terrifying. And it was a look of, I hate you. And then he had these big black eyes, and then he hit me as hard as he could. I fell down and he walked off. So
Where,
I,
where was your baby at this point?
Yeah, Lila was still by the couch where he grabbed me the first time. So she couldn't crawl at the time. So she's just sitting there crying and screaming. My mom was in the shower, so she couldn't even hear like my kicking or screaming. But at that point, once he left, then I was probably louder and she eventually came out. But I got on the phone. I think I called my husband first before the cops, just to say like, you need to get home. And then I immediately called the cops, and it takes them a while to get out to our house. Cause again, we lived outside of town. My husband comes home. He comes home with a friend. So Nick, who we own the gym with, just because he was super rattled about everything. And so we're going through the investigation. They even had like the canine cop dogs, like looking for this guy, because they release, whatever it is, pheromones or something. Like when you have adrenaline, you release something that the dogs pick up. Dogs weren't picking up anything. Several cops out there looking, couldn't find him. It's taking hours at this point. And I remember just telling, like, I had this thought come through at one point that was, he's coming back. And it wasn't like a frantic thought. One thing I've learned about intuition is it's very neutral. And so it was just like, he's coming back. And I, of course, was telling that to everybody there. I was like, I know he's coming back. He's coming back. And as people do, I'm sure, try to make you feel better and soothe you. And they were like, and nobody's ever come back. Like in 30 years of experience, nobody's come back. Of course, we don't have a crystal ball, but, we've never seen anybody come back. So, that in itself was just to be attacked in your own home, and just like to be physically touched by somebody and handled by somebody was, it's one of the scariest things ever, especially it happening in your home where you feel safe. And so the rest of Mother's Day, I was just completely off, obviously.
And this was at 1 in the afternoon.
1 in the afternoon. Yeah.
And he just left.
And
he did this. Left. He just walked out the front door.
He didn't even run. He just walked out like it was no big deal. Yeah. And so we kind of went through so much. It was hours of going through the investigation. We actually told our friend Nick, like, take Kyle's truck, go home. This is taking so long. So Nick took Kyle's truck and he went home. We still went to dinner, but I was traumatized.
You still went to dinner?
Well, yeah. It was. It was Mother's Day and Kyle had made plans to have dinner. And so I was like, well, of course, and you kind of want to try to get it out of your mind and I can go to dinner. Like, that's fine. That wasn't the best. I don't know. I just remember going to the bathroom and then I had to go down the hall to go to the bathroom. And I was like terrified to go down the hall because it was a little bit dark. And so it was whatever, dinner. And then Lila, our daughter, choked on some food there. It didn't work out very well for us. But anyway, we went back home, and then going to bed that night, I was, of course, really scared. And I was like triple checking every door, every window. And we had a lot of doors and windows at that house, and I would check them all. And then I'd like sit down and then I'd do it again. And then I'd do it again. And then I get back into bed and then I'm like, I'm doing it again. I think Kyle was like, girl's crazy. And so go to bed that night, and we had 2 little Yorkies, Lola and Lily. They slept with us, and most nights they got up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom. And usually I took them out since I would, be up with my daughter or whatnot. But they woke up at like 1:30, as they did most of the time. And I woke my husband up and I said, you're taking them. There's no way I'm going outside to take them to go to the bathroom. And at the time we slept with a bat, a Louisville Slugger bat, and then a can of wasp spray on each side of the bed. Like, that was our self-defense.
You did that before this happened or after this happened?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, we always slept with a bat and wasp spray for self-protection, especially like with Kyle being a firefighter. Like, I wanted something there for me that I was comfortable with. But a cop had told us wasp spray was like one of the best self-defense things.
That's
And
a good tip.
yeah, better than I think pepper spray or whatnot. And then for like having a gun conversation, I was like, oh my gosh, Kyle, I don't even think I could like shoot somebody if like somebody ever came in. So that wasn't something that we had at that point. So
Wow.
tell Kyle.
So the dogs get up. It's like 12 hours later, right?
Yeah. So
Okay.
it's just after, it's almost 1:30 in the morning, and they weren't barking. They just wake up and then they let you know, I need to go pee. So I tell Kyle, take the bat, and he doesn't even say anything, but he just grabs the wasp spray because he was not scared at all. And he gets into the hall, he opens our door, gets into the hall, and the dogs start kind of like growling, and Lola runs back into the bed with me. And so he turns around to say like, shut up, don't wake anybody up. And as he turns around, the dude is standing right there in the hallway. And he immediately goes for my husband, and my husband's like, oh shit, sorry, I don't know if I can swear. So he takes the wasp spray and he starts spraying at the guy, basically pisses the guy off more.
What did the guy do to your husband when you said he went after?
He just came and charged after him. The hallway he was walking down, he was actually getting close to my mom's bedroom. So when Kyle, he had passed our bedroom door and Lila's bedroom door, thank gosh, and he was going to my mom's bedroom door. And so when Kyle got in the hallway, he turned around and then just charged after him like he was going to start fighting him. And so Kyle sprayed the wasp spray as he's charging after him. And then he drops that really quick because it's like he just attacked my husband. And so Kyle's like, I mean, it's like a fight. Kyle's trying to punch him and he's trying to hit him. And by the I start to hear what's going on, that there's
you're still in the bedroom.
I'm still in the bedroom. And then both of the dogs had come back in, and then I can hear stuff. So I'm like, oh my gosh, I knew immediately who it was. So I grab the bat and I come out there. And by the time I get out there, Kyle, thank gosh, but Kyle, he was a wrestler in high school. He taught wrestling as a coach at Mount Si for several years. So he had wrestling experience as well as, I mean, he's pretty fit. We owned a gym. And so he was able to have this guy on like all fours. So the guy's like on all fours, and then Kyle has him in a headlock. So Kyle's like arm is wrapped around the guy's neck and tucked down. And so by the time I get out there, you know, his back is wide open and I have the bat. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to start swinging this at him. And I wound up with, I'm small, but I think I was pretty strong for my size, but I just like got on my tippy toes. I reached up as high as I could with this bat and I slammed it on his back. And then I did the same thing. I just kept like slamming it on him. And I mean, mind you, he's not making any noises. He's not saying, ow. He's not like,
really?
There's nothing. There's like, if you're getting a bat slammed on your back, most normal people would be doing something.
Yeah.
And then on the sixth time I hit him, the bat broke. And I was like, this is a Louisville Slugger wooden bat. It wasn't like a little kid's bat.
Yeah, it's hard to break a bat.
Yeah. And so that surprised me. And when it broke, it was like you see in the movies, you know, or like a baseball game where it's like jagged. So I thought about taking one side of the bat and jabbing it into his back. And then I was like, no, I can't do that. And so I put that down, and then then I started trying to kick him in the balls. That's what I did. Because his hips were up and he's still on all fours. And so I started trying to kick him in the balls. And because he had hit me, when he hit me earlier, I sprained my ankle from falling. And so I was trying to kick him and it hurt so bad that I was like, oh, this hurts. So then I tried kicking him with my left foot and that was just it. That was even worse. And so that wasn't working for me. And then I see the can of wasp spray that Kyle, had put down or whatever. And so I grabbed the can of wasp spray. And again, he's still in the same position. Him and Kyle are just like literally in this, like, Kyle is just doing everything he can to keep him in a headlock. He's trying to choke him out. But the guy's fighting back and trying to grab his balls and break his finger and bite him. And so because his head is tucked down from Kyle, I am able to spray wasp spray in his eyes, like point blank, so that it doesn't get Kyle. And so,
oh my gosh,
I know. So I grabbed the wasp spray and I just like literally put it at his eyes, point blank. I'm holding down the trigger, like just continually spraying. And
did he make noise then?
No, he's not making any noise. He's just growling, like
growling.
He's making growling noises and yeah, it was just nasty.
Let me ask you a question. When you were in the bedroom and you can hear all this, did you call 911 or did you even
No, I didn't. Like my first response is like, what is going on? Like, you could like, and he was, like, I just knew he was coming back. I knew it wasn't good, whatever is happening. So I guess, my first reaction was to go freaking help, So, but at that point, my mom heard the commotion too. So she comes out, she grabs one of the broken pieces of the bat. She tries
because after you sprayed the wasp.
Yeah, I'm still spraying. Like right now it's all
still spraying. And your mom comes out. Okay.
Yep. So I'm spraying. She's trying to hit him with the bat. Kyle's trying to choke him out. Then Kyle is able to tell my mom, call 911. So she, which is amazing. I'm sorry that he's trying to choke somebody out. And then to me, that's like total first responder. Like he's so calm and like, aware of the situation. So, but then, I'm still spraying, nothing's changing. Kyle's getting exhausted. And he eventually said, Tenny, I need help. And that was a huge moment for me ever, because Kyle's never asked for help in his life before, like ever. And he's so capable of anything. He's so strong. And as soon as he said it, like it was a light switch that went off for me. And I ran to the kitchen and I knew we had two big kitchen knives, 2 10-inch kitchen knives, and one was good, one was flimsy. And so I grabbed both to make sure I had the good one. And I came back and the guy, again, he's still on all fours. Kyle still has him in a headlock, and I just start stabbing him in the back. And and it was crazy. I stabbed him 4 or 5 times. And at one point I pulled out the knife and there's like a chunk of the knife missing. And I was like, insane. And it, it's just, covered in blood and everything, but I kept stabbing him. And then, eventually Kyle could tell that he passed. And he was like, Tenny, stop. And then he let him fall to the floor. I stabbed him one more time in the gut. And then Kyle was like, Tenny, stop. And, but you're so jacked up, on adrenaline, and you're so terrified and, not believing that, you're actually still safe. So, but eventually, so I stopped, and then Kyle just laid on him. He was so exhausted. And, my mom was still on the phone with 911 at that point. So she's, saying what's happening to 911 as it's happening. And, and then I get on the phone. They have to help me, guide me to setting the knife down. And I was so scared to put the knife down. I thought he was going to resurrect and continue attacking us. And, Uh, and then Kyle gets on the phone, and again, it takes a while for them to get out there. But yeah, it just started the investigation of, all these police start coming in, and as soon as they come into the house, I'm like, they're trying to usher me away from the guy, and I'm like, get your gun on him. Like, please just get your gun on him. I was so, so scared, still. And so we were ushered to like the front entryway, and they just droves of cops and detectives start coming. And, we had to be kept separate. Apparently, like, I didn't realize this at first, but we were technically like arrested for murder. And
Really?
yeah, which, I mean, we were never handcuffed. We were never told that. But at one point, the detective pulled each of us in the car. And she was so kind. Like, I didn't realize, because I mean, she put me in the front seat. Like, she opened the door. They put me in the front seat. There was one detective in the back seat. I think the first thing she said when she looked at me was like, "Are you okay?" And I think I was like, "I'm okay. I just don't want to be in trouble. I just don't want to be in trouble." I just repeated that. And then, before she said anything else, she gave me her business card, and she wrote down the book. She's like, "I want you to read this book, A Gift of Fear."
Oh my
And
goodness.
I know, she's like such an angel in our
It's sweet,
story.
but you're thinking, I don't want to read a book right now.
Well, no, to me, it felt, I was so touched. Like, honestly, I was like somebody who, I'm in a cop car right now, and she's giving me a resource. Like, I was so,
Yeah.
and she gave me her business card. Like, I was so touched. Like, I knew that was a big deal. I knew that it wasn't, that was different. And so, and then she said, just like really calmly, like, "So I do have to read you your rights." And I said, "Okay." And she said, "You know what that means?" And I said, "I guess so." I did not. I was like, don't think I comprehended. And so I just sat there waiting for her when we were reading my rights. And then she just, wanted my side of the story and to go through everything. So yeah, and we each had to do that. Kyle had to do that. My mom had to do that. I don't know if my mom read her rights, but we all had to give our sides of the story. I'm sure they needed to see how it lines up. And then you just have to sit there. Eventually I was able to shower and just like get everything off. It was so nasty. And
where was the baby during this?
Yeah, good question. So Lila was still in her bedroom. Like, she fortunately, like,
God.
didn't have to hear anything that was happening. And at one point, because once the detectives started coming, they started needing to go into every room to start like taking pictures and evidence and, all of that. And so Lila did wake up. She never cried. But my mom just sat in the room with her, since Kyle and I had to be separate. We were in our little area with a cop assigned to us. So my mom just was with her in the middle of the night. Yeah. And, it took several hours. And then from there, because Kyle and I both had open wounds, and then there was, his blood everywhere, we had to go get tested for like, if there was any, what's the word I'm looking for? Disease that could be spread. And at that point I was like, what? Like the fact, we had to go to an infectious disease doctor. So the first thing we did was we went to the hospital. So we drove.
So you went in the middle of the night.
I mean, it was.
How did you get there?
Yeah, by the time we were able to leave, it was like 6:30 in the morning. So
and then how did you get there?
So we drove. Yeah, we drove our car and our dogs, Lila. We all drove down to my in-laws' house in Fall City, so 15 minutes away. And then from there, we kind of regrouped. We got to see his parents for the first time, because I had been with my mom. My dad came over. And so driving down to their house, get to like, we had told them what happened. So at that point, they just want to like hug you and make sure you're okay. And then Kyle's dad drove us to Kyle's fire station, because the fire our call went out to departments. And so his department, even though it wasn't the responding department, knew what was happening. And so Kyle's lieutenant wanted to meet us at the fire station so that he could go with us to the hospital and just get everything checked out, or wounds checked out. So yeah, Kyle's dad drove us to the fire station, which then the lieutenant and then the aid car that Kyle works for, they drove us to the hospital. And they did that because us going in an ambulance helps you get seen quicker. And then we were at the hospital for a while and really well taken care of. You know, the doctor in charge checked on us and everything. But then from there, we went to the infectious disease doctor so that they run his blood and if there's any disease and then what we're exposed to. And I just remember being really pissed off about that part, because I was like, dude, we just had to like fight to save our life. Now potentially can have disease spread. Like that was one of the most disgusting thoughts to like think of.
Yeah.
And then from there, you know, we just went back home and to Kyle's parents' house and started to figure out how to start figuring it all out. And
so you couldn't go back to your house.
No, it was now a crime scene. You know, it was totally yellow tape. Everything's crime scene. I mean, we didn't certainly want to go back at that point, but
no.
We did. And we weren't going to go back. We knew that. So we stayed the night at Kyle's parents, but then needed to like go back to the house to get clothes and our stuff for Lila and whatnot. So we did that, you know, either that day or the next day. But the guy, you know, people ask a lot of questions. So I usually bring these up. A lot of times, one of the biggest questions we get is, was he on drugs or alcohol? There was nothing. He had nothing in his system at all.
And he never made a noise except for some growling, even when he's getting spray in his eyes. Nothing.
Yes, nothing.
Getting stabbed, he's nothing.
Yeah. And even like his back, when they did the autopsy, like they're like, you hit him really hard. He has something called subway tracks, where because of like the impact of the bat, like it was so hard that it pushed the blood to the side of the bat. So he had these like, I think they're called subway or like railroad tracks on his bat. So like he was hit extremely hard. So they just said, you know, it was like a psychotic break. And when people are like that, they're pretty unstoppable because they're in like a completely different state of mind. It's like you're fighting the Hulk. So what Kyle was able to do, like, no wonder he's freaking exhausted. Like that's exhausting enough for a normal person. So it was, you know, we were working with somebody who was really on a different level, and he had some really bad intentions that night. You know, I've read stories of articles done on us and they're like, well, why would you just kill somebody who just came in? And I'm like, gosh, you have no idea what was going on in that situation. And he chose to fight my husband. He could have chose to try to leave. He did not do that. You know, that night was the first night ever my husband was home with his truck not being home because, you know, Kyle's a firefighter, he's gone. So that night he came, he thought that he was getting me alone at a different, you know, in the middle of the night, and that he would, you know, have things differently. The cops think that her crying and her being on the floor scared him off that first time. So that's maybe why he came back in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
But he came with gardening gloves, duct tape to his wrists. He had a flashlight. He had a tripod. He had a camera. He had duct tape.
What?
Yeah. So
why would someone have that with him? Like a camera?
Yeah. So he had a YouTube channel that he made these like crazy videos, and he hated women. He called women girls, and that we were despicable, and that we we think we have this power, we have no power. And he would just go on these rants on his YouTube channel. And so, I mean, I think it's pretty clear what he wanted to do with me, if you will, like use duct tape and video was going to happen. Yeah. So, yeah, it was pretty wild.
Did he know you?
No, yeah, good question. They kept asking me that. I'd never recognized him in my life before. And so through the investigation, they think that maybe he saw me at like the grocery store or Starbucks or something. And I triggered something within him, and he had gone through a really bitter divorce a few years prior. And so he apparently after his divorce, he really spiraled, his family said, and just kind of went off the deep end. And, his previous wife had been so scared of him, and his kids that I think had been scared of him at one point too. But the thought was that, like, the detective told me I kind of resembled his ex-wife.
I was just going to ask that.
Yeah. And so maybe seeing me triggered that in him and why he chose to follow me. Yeah.
Did he live near you?
Yeah, he lived a few miles away. So yeah, he lived a few miles away. And when they found his car that night, his car was like a mile and a half away from our house, and it had like his front and passenger seats like completely reclined. Yeah, it was so odd.
Well, you are so lucky to be alive.
Oh, I agree. Thank you. I think we were so protected that night. We were so protected from like whatever higher power you want to call it. But like it strengthened my faith in that, because just the timing of everything the fact that Kyle was home that night for the first time ever and his truck wasn't, the fact that our dogs woke up when they did, I certainly had to go through all those things to fail to actually do that. I would never have just first thing do that. But, and the fact that Kyle had his experience, we were really, really, really protected that night.
Yeah. So. Having wrestling experience and plus a bat and a can of wasp spray came in very handy. Gosh, that's so scary. Yeah. So how did your family move on from this?
Yeah, it's really hard, honestly. It's still, even like a decade later, it's still something that there's challenges with. And I think you just like every day you just like for me, it was just like, okay, one day at a time. You literally, I just have to like literally get through this day because, you're scared every single moment of the day. My body was on complete overdrive. Like my nervous system was completely hijacked. I was, there's fight or flight mode. I was in fight mode 24/7. And so, and then when night would come, oh my gosh, I was just like so scared. Kyle and I couldn't even sit in a room by ourselves. We pulled a mattress into his parents' bedroom. We slept in his parents' bedroom for months. And every noise you hear, Kyle and I just like held each other, and we're not cuddlers, but like,
you're not cuddlers.
We were so scared and so traumatized, and like every again, just like something happening in your home where that's like your safe place.
It's so violating.
It's so violating. Yeah, absolutely. And it just it completely jacks you up for any sense of safety. And so honestly, it was just like getting through each day. We had incredible support from our families and from friends, and Kyle's fire department. They were amazing. Within 30 minutes of them hearing the call, Kyle's shifts were covered for 3 months. Like people just, volunteered their entire day as a 24-hour shift so that Kyle could be home and be with us, which like
Oh,
always just like blows me away. And this is always where I get emotional. And our gym just like completely like, just, they wrote letters to us. They created a meal train for us, which to me, like a meal train is so powerful. Like I was so, we're people who really don't like to accept help. We feel bad, but that experience was like, man, it's a gift that somebody wants to give you too. You receiving allows them to give you a gift that they want and fulfills them. And so just to see somebody like who put thought and time and just care for you to prepare you a meal and then show up and not even say anything, but just to show up and give you a hug and a smile was so like, gosh, it just like gets you through each day. And we definitely went to therapy right away. Harborview in Seattle, which, as you know, is like, the top medical place in our area. They have a trauma center. And so we immediately got into their trauma counseling and started that. And, that was okay. It was awful work. We did something called exposure therapy, where you basically, you have to expose yourself to things that like terrify you. And so,
my goodness. I mean, I can't imagine it's like you're going through it all over again.
It sucked. And the whole point is just, you had that bad experience. So now your body's like continually expecting that. So exposing yourself to it to have more reps that it's safe and you're okay. And so,
but did it help you? Do you think
it did? Yeah. Okay. I would have to, like, for me, it was sitting in a room by myself. I would literally be in a house with many other people, but I'd go to a room like right next to everybody, shut the door, and I'd have to be in there for like 20 minutes, 15 or 20 minutes. And you rate yourself, like, how awful is it, basically? And it was always a 9 or a 10. I was crying and sweating and panicking. And you have to ride that wave. And eventually your body does calm down a little bit. And as soon as you get to, I don't know, bad memory, but like a 5 or a 6, then at least you've like, your body's learned to calm down. So I had to do that. Kyle had to stay up like a few minutes after everybody. So everybody would go to bed. He would be alone in the house. And then like, it was so sweet. But one of his homework assignments one day was to like walk outside and like walk to the mailbox and back at night. Yeah. And just like how scared he was to do that. And he'll tell the story of like him coming back and his mom being like, "I'm so proud of you," and he's like crying. It's just like, it's really hard. And eventually that therapy didn't work for me anymore. Well, I don't know if I'll say that therapy, but the therapist, because I had such a fear, like this can happen again. And she would just give me statistics. So she'd be like, well, crime's actually coming down in Seattle. And what happened to you is 0.00001%. And so she was trying to give me these like reaffirming statistics. I was like, dude, your statistics don't help me when I was that 1 in a million. Like, that doesn't help. And so unfortunately, I think a lot of people give up after therapy might not work or a person doesn't work. But I was still really messed up, and so was Kyle. So we eventually did a couples therapist for trauma, which was nice to do together, just to like be vulnerable together and support each other in that way. So we did that. And I won't say that was like groundbreaking for us, but at least like time was also working with us. So, the further you get out from it, the better you got. But I mean, I got on medication. I'm not a medication person. I think you know that about me, but
I'm not either.
I really do. I mean, we get headaches, we use oils, and like we try to do everything naturally as we can. But I was like, my system was, not working. And so,
Sometimes you need something a little stronger, especially when you've been in this
yeah.
situation.
And I'm very open about it because I think there's such a stigma around medication, and I hate that. But, I definitely was in a moment where I couldn't just snap out of it. And so like I was on Xanax 3 times a day for the initial part. And then, sleep was really, 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 really hard.
Oh, I
And when
bet.
you're never getting sleep, you're never, sleep is such an important part for health and to recover and to everything. So at one
And
point
you're trying to raise a child in the
yeah,
middle of all this.
yeah, and I think that there are impacts to her because, I think having a mom and dad who have PTSD, like, of course I was there and loving and showing up for her, but I believe there are totally different layers of energy that is being exchanged that they can feel. And, unfortunately, I think that was a really sucky side effect of all this that Lila felt at a really young age, with having parents that were totally traumatized. So, it was one day at a time and continually. The thing about me is I never really felt like a victim. I was just so grateful to be alive, honestly. This guy was so insane. And so my North Star in that time was I just want to be happy again. I just want to feel normal again. Just to feel normal is so, it felt so far away, and that's all I wanted. And so, that's all I would work towards. And so trying to find when I had issues, like sharing those issues or asking for help and stuff like that. And, eventually, that got me to a pretty good place, but, eventually we moved into our house too. And that was scary. And we did, unfortunately,
You moved into a different, moved into a different house.
Yeah. Cause we were building our house during that time.
Okay.
And so eventually our house was finished. And so we had to move in. Not had to, I mean, we get to, or so, but it's also really scary. But we also, our 2 Yorkies, we were sponsored to get a protection dog, which was amazing. But having a baby, a protection dog, and 2 Yorkies was too much. And so we made the decision to find our dogs a home, which honestly is one thing I'm still upset about. It's those are my dogs. Those are my first dogs.
Oh, that's really hard.
Yeah, it was really, and I'm dude, those little Yorkies saved our lives. The fact when they woke up, I mean, they're little studs. But anyway, once we moved in, we did have a protection dog, a trained protection dog. Kyle had spent the summer building a 6-foot fence around our entire property. We had a gate, and even at that, we had people sleep with us, and then Kyle was back at work, and so friends would stay the night with me. And so our community really just helped us so much. And so it was accepting and leaning on a lot of support, that's for sure.
Especially when you're not used to asking for help.
Yeah, but you knew, our friends really allowed us to feel they'd almost do you need me to stay over? And they just, they're just awesome. So there was no guilt or feelings and by that time they had been sleeping with us a lot. That sounds really bad, but they had been staying over a lot. And they are amazing. So
no, but I mean, it probably helped you sleep knowing that there are people in the house.
100%. Yeah. Just having another person for me, was a really big deal. Yeah. So.
Yeah.